Live. Hold on. You're muted, Toby.
Good evening, everyone. Here I am, Ladbroke Grove. You hear the traffic go by. Here we are again at the library, at our virtual library, for day 6 of our 7 talks, all about our spaces in North Kensington. This evening, we're going to be hearing all about our health and well-being. It's all about just surviving, but thriving. But before we get into that with your host, Jacob, first, a film. Please join us for 72 seconds of silence and remember why we're here.
I presume I'm live now, and day 6, I'm the host, and I would just like to comment on that opening video, which I find full of different emotions, some joyful, some sad, obviously, but full of emotions. And I'd like to thank Toby for creating that, and in our remembrance and honouring of Grenfell, and how we all are here really in this way together. So I am very pleased to be here. I will just say a bit about myself and then introduce our guest panelists. So I'm a local. I grew up in the area. I'm the son of a market stall holder, long term, and grew up very much in the area, on the street, Portobello, Ladbroke Grove area. I'm a capoeira, and I teach children and adults. I've been teaching in the Tabernacle, Paddington Arts, Venture Centre, and in various schools around the area. I've also been very active in a lot of the campaigns before Grenfell. Actually, the Friends of North Kensington Library, the library campaign, was my first real campaign, and I don't feel quite comfortable with that, considering all of the history of this area and what's happened and all of the things that have come out of activism, campaigning, and people, doing things in the area. And I feel that I have appreciated a lot of the work that people have done in the past, spaces and etc., without actually knowing the history behind them. And but entering into the library campaign via Westway 23 really connected back with a sort of what I felt like lost with the community, a bit lost touch with Grove, the area, community, and actually I found sort of a family, a lost family almost, and connection with the area that I used to have and that I seemed to lost, but was there in the meetings and the community events that we held, and that was a great experience. And I think it's something that we can take away as a real positive from all of the trouble that we've had, the terrible things, and to do with our spaces, to do with our homes and our relationship with the council. And there has been a really good rebuilding of community, and revaluing and looking at our own local history, and finding people that we really can look at and look up to and see as people that we admire and respect, that may not have official titles or may not have any official positions, but they have earned their respect and friendship. And so yes, so I will now introduce three panelists, and I'm sorry to say that one of our original panelists had decided that she did not want to take part, that she felt slightly uncomfortable. She really wanted to talk about the well-being and the healing that is taking place and the activities that's going on. Can I just say that I can hear someone typing and it's quite off-putting? Don't know if everyone can hear that. Someone's typing. Stop typing. Thank you. We had a little prep yesterday. Her name is Jennifer Odonkor, and she's from the Hub Community Kitchen. and we had planned to. We really wanted them to join, but she felt uncomfortable about the discussion leaning towards and veering back to the council, and that's we quite understand that. But however, we're sorry that she felt like that, but we have a brilliant person to replace her who does lots and lots of work, and we're going to find out about that. So we have in the room with us, make sure I get the names right. Who are we going to first? Okay, Nick, thank you. Susan Rudnick, founder of the Latimer Community Art Therapy Group based at Henry Dickens. We have Niles Hailstone. Have I written anything about him? Who is today going to be talking about? I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly.
I can't actually hear a thing, so I don't know. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm so sorry. My sound's just really, really poor.
Just poor, or you can't hear anything, Susan? Sorry.
I can't really hear anything at all. So I don't know. I don't know why.
Has that always been the case, or has it just got worse?
Only with Jacob.
Okay, hold on a sec.
Shall I continue with in doing a brief introduction of Niles?
If you don't mind, and if Susan can't hear, we'll just get her in on vMix.
Okay, so, and we also have Niles Hailstone, who is well known in the community, and he's here tonight to talk about the memory dance and the space that he has created at Bay 56 under the Westway. And then we also have Ilaria, who is a local yoga teacher and has done lots of work in the community with youth club, with young people, and is currently working with Bond UK charity that's working with health and well-being. So thank you, our guest panelists, for coming. And we will let them give themselves further introduction. Susan, can you hear me now?
Is it any better, Susan? Any better, Susan?
No, sorry, I didn't hear anything, Jacob.
Nothing at all.
Well,
okay. Can you start with Ilana, and I'll get Susan back in on a V call.
Sure. So, Ilaria, welcome to our virtual library, Our Environment Clean and Green. Please introduce yourself. I think your mic might be silenced. Okay.
Is it?
It's okay. Speak
no,
away.
It's okay now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Hi, my name is Ilaria. I'm a member of this community. I always lived here since I moved to London 22 years ago. Even if I still have this very strong tourist accent, I've been here for 22 years. And I'm an artist.
Can you hear me, Susan?
And a yoga teacher. And I do lots of work.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit.
Okay.
I can't hear any of that last.
Sorry, Susan, can you drop out and check your email, please? I'm going to send you a link. Sorry.
I think we need to mute Susan now when we talk.
Yes, we have. I didn't realize that was going to come through. We're going to replace that. Sorry, Ilana, if you carry on, please.
Shall I carry on talking?
Yes, please.
Okay,
yes,
so
please do. Yes.
I do lots of community work because I'm an artist, and I also do art in the community, like with the Pavilion Hive, and also, by myself, we do lots of work in schools and things like that. But at the moment, I'm working with the Wand UK, which is a very small women's charity. It's just very, very nice. It's been founded by a lady who was a refugee she is a refugee from Sierra Leone. and it's a women's charity, and it's focused on health and well-being. So for them, I teach yoga every day, free. Please come, 10 a.m. Free yoga. And also we do like youth work, and we do lots of like we help the community a lot. Like for example, on a Wednesday, we give food. We have like a kind of like a food bank at Venture Center, and everyone is welcome to get their weekly parcel. Small charity, but they do lots of very, very, very good work. This is why I choose to work with them. What else? I don't know. I mean, I can talk about other things, but maybe is this just an introduction?
Yes, I think that's great. That's a very nice introduction, and we can get back to talking more about that. Thank you, Ilaria. And Nars, can you hear us? How's the tech?
Yes,
working
can
for
you hear
you?
me?
We can.
Yes.
I
I can
can.
hear you.
Very
Okay,
good. So thank you for coming to our environment, Clean and Green. Would you like to introduce yourself? And I hope that I introduce you correctly. Is it Memer dance? Memer.
I'll explain that. The word is Meridani.
Meridani. Okay.
That's
Yes.
yeah. Meridani. It means it's an Akan word. It means it's actually a symbol that you'll see on the front of the village. That means time changes. That's what it means. But I will get into that in a little while. Yeah, I've lived in the area all my life. I'm a grandfather, an uncle, a father, a son, all of these things, you know. And yeah, I've always lived here. I'm a musician first and foremost. That's what, I've been doing the majority of my life. As a musician and coming from a Pan-African base and root, our music is very much connected to the community in a way that is very integral. It's very much an everyday part of life. So within that, I've done worked in all fields of music, from touring, studio work, live work, recording, all of that, but also in terms of taking that into my environment, community, schools, colleges, universities, everywhere really, and also on a grassroots level, the cultural aspect of birth and death and recycle and everything in between that, coming from the root and applying that to my environment in whatever aspect that may be. So that's what I really do. I just I use those tools that I've learned through the discipline of music and through the road of music as the basis of everything I do, really, no matter what area I'm in. If it's about, even if it's about our social, political conditions or whatever, these things are still relevant, so life has rhythm, harmony, syncopation, dissonance, cacophony, all of these things.
So you take it with you wherever you go, really.
Yeah, it's that's what I'm saying. It's an innate part of who I am and what I do, and that would be part of anything I'm involved in terms of holding that rooted place of where we're actually coming from and what we're dealing with. At the moment, I'm chair of 2 local organizations, unincorporated, One Voice Community Collective and Westway 23. I'm also co-chair of the community advisory group into the institutional racism in the Westway Trust. I think that's about enough for now in terms of introduction.
Great.
To give you a little oversight.
Yes. Thank you, Niles.
And
Thank
also,
you.
yeah,
And
also
yes.
we're based at the village at the moment, which is Bay 56. in that club village.
Okay,
Since
thank
the
you.
40th of June, yeah, 2017.
Right. Well, we'll be talking about that. So Susan, can you hear us? How's the tech going for you now?
I can hear you now.
Smiles.
And I've brought a Wi-Fi booster in, so hopefully that'll resolve the issues.
Wonderful.
So I'm sorry I didn't hear much of that. I heard a bit of Miles. So Jacob, what do you need me to do?
Well, please give us a brief introduction before we get into the conversations. Thank you, the discussions.
Fab. Okay. So I'm Susan Rudnick, and I have sort of lived in the area for a couple of decades, and I've got two children at local schools here, and I am the co-director of Latimer Community Art Therapy, which is an organisation that began spontaneously and out of need in the community, sort of where I live, after Grenfell, and we've since sort of developed into an organisation that provides art psychotherapy services across 14 schools, 3 community hubs, and we also run a sort of community centre locally, which provides kids club, youth club, coffee mornings, you know, and is just really a place just to gather and collect, and offers a space to the community where they can come together. I am an art psychotherapist. I've got 15 years experience in working with child and adolescent mental health, which I've seen lots of changes over the years, and I guess not all of them have been positive. So kind of, you know, being able to affect change locally and provide services that you know our children need feels like a real privilege. I also you know, work in a couple of other places. I'm a university lecturer at Goldsmiths on the Masters for Art Psychotherapy, and I also work at Chelsea Westminster Hospital across paediatrics, and have been supporting the ICU team over the pandemic as well, more recently. So a sort of few things to kind of go from in terms of thinking about health and well-being and surviving, and you know, not just surviving but thriving. Because I feel,
did you want your images up, Susan?
What? Sorry?
Did you want your images up?
No, not
Okay.
right. No, whenever.
Okay.
Really.
Nobody can hear me, so don't talk to me. Only you can hear me, so don't worry about talking to me. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I can hear you, Nick.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Only the stage can, the public can't. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Jacob, go.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. And yeah, we had like, you know, a little discussion before we came on live, and you know, we really wanted to focus on, you know, our community and how we're healing ourselves. So I think there's a lot, obviously there's a lot of people doing great things, and obviously the Hub Community Kitchen, you know, they would, you know, the food aspect of that, you know, and we have you know, Niles and music, and then we have physical practices, yoga, and then you know, art therapy. So there's lots of different things going on in the area where people are coming in, and we talked about how the people that were doing, you know, therapy or creating safe spaces where people could come and feel just comfortable to do, you know, to be themselves, whether it just be, you know, to sit and have some space, maybe to eat, not eat, you know, was really important. And how, you know, with all of the, you know, say the troubles that are going on, how those people managed to, you know, keep themselves well while knowing that it was important to be able to offer, you know, this help people, because in order to help people, you need to be yourself, you know, in a good place. So, does anyone want to, you know, particularly, you know, would anyone like to respond to that? How they've been able to keep themselves in a good space while offering, you know, the different things they have been offering and helping.
I can
sort of,
okay, you can go.
that's
Susan.
okay. On you go. On you go. On you go.
No, you go. No, you go.
No, you. Yeah, I guess I think this is often a topic that comes up, particularly for sort of therapists and, you know, people that are sort of in the midst of a situation that's very traumatic, really. I mean, there's lots of emphasis on doing things for yourself, and taking care of yourself. And I think for me anyway, the biggest and most important thing really is that care is in a group and we take care of each other. And I think the most beneficial thing really has been able to be together and to think with each other and be part of a group. And that, you know, sometimes there's only so much care of oneself you can do, really. And actually a lot of what the community needed after, you know, in recovery, and still does and still will, is the kind of spaces that were created where coming together and you know, working through difficulties in a space that you felt safe, you know, and that's been quite important, really. And external support. I've got people that hold me outside of the community that have supported me through quite difficult things.
Ilaria, would you like to come in on that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's been very, very difficult for the community. You know, the people that, you know, they saw, you know, the fire, the people that were affected, the people, you know, it's been very, very difficult. But the community itself has been, I think, the therapy, because really, you know, we came together and you know, we did lots of things. For example, the Grenfell March, the silent march. You know, every time I went, I think I only missed a few. Now, of course, they finished, but you know, that moment was just okay. So of course, incredibly sad when, you know, everyone is marching together in silence. But it is also very profoundly healing, because it's a moment where, you know, when you're allowed to just be sad and just mourn, you know. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay. So yes, the community itself and all those things and all those people coming together, organizing things, and you know, this has been great. And thank God, you know, that there was this strong community, because we didn't get a lot of help really from the institutions. I remember one day, this was like 2 years ago, I think, we had a graffiti day underneath the Trellick Tower. And I called some friends from they live in other parts of London now, and, you know, from, I don't know, Balham or South London, other places. And they said, you know, like, we wouldn't do that for sure. You know, the community wouldn't come together in, you know, in Balham in this strong way. So I just think, you know, our community is a strength. I'm not saying, I mean, all communities are important, and I'm sure there is, you know, but it's just, there is something special about this one, maybe because of all we've been through. Talking about, I mean, the question was more about ourselves, yeah? Okay, yes, the community for me as well. And of course, teaching yoga. Teaching yoga is great, because you share you know, those techniques of you know, relaxation and you know, healing, and to be positive and all this, but also you practice as you teach. So it's fantastic, and you know, the fact of doing it every day is really been good. And art, of course, art is a fantastic way to get everything out of you, and then it becomes something else. So my art, the community art we do with the Pavilion Hive, all those things, they're very important.
Thank you. Thank you. Niles, would you like to come in on that?
Yeah. Space is the place, you know, in terms of, this is what the community, a lot of our battle over the years has been about access and space. To go to the surviving and thriving aspect of it, our community has gained some strength and knowledge in terms of battling over the years because of the fact that we are survivors. We're a community of survivors. You know, that's historically, you know, but historically we've also been prevented from thriving in North Kensington, which has been a deliberate agenda of, let's say, the powers that were. So, you know, we're in a time now where we're looking at what is, you know, if we're going to look at what thriving is, you know, what has been thriving previously was the wrong thing, right? The greed, the corruption, the closing down of facilities. You know, the North Kensington Amenities Trust was originally called the Amenities Trust, so it was about space and access for the community. Now we've had the opposite agenda for the last 50 years. Moving into thriving is about that things are flowing and flourishing and growing, and what needs to be growing now is the community from a grassroots level up, you know. And we need to be seeing that flourishing happening in all areas around us. So our community can't really thrive unless the opportunities and the economy, the opportunities, the education, all of those things are flowing around us. So we're still surviving. We haven't got to thriving yet, because with a lot of stuff we've had to fight to even have space along this road. We're in a different phase of that journey now, and you know, it's about, can we plant those seeds and see these green shoots start coming up that that won't be dug up, that won't be taken out. Like Marley said, every time we plant a seed they say kill it before it grows, and this has been the problem. You know, you can't thrive if someone keeps stomping on the garden. Yeah, so that's also part of it. So, you know, we've done a good, as a community. Remember, we've been going through traumatic experiences and having to function collectively. So we still need to have a lot of empathy with each other and realize that, you know, it's a challenging time once again, because even unlike in Grenfell, we're not able to gather. We were able to gather physically, we were able to gather, have meetings, support each other, you know, feel each other's presence. Whereas now, you know, that's it, we're in a different time now, but the circumstances are not that much different. Because for those of us on ground, you know, the same situation but worse is going on, because there's a little opportunity and little work. So it's very important that, you know, we continue to share the gifts that we have, because that's where the healing is at in our daily interaction and in a lot of the mundane things. You know, the authorities tend to look at things as, you know, very linear and analytical and materially. Like they see space in terms of square foot yield and threshold, where we see space as a possibility of something that can be created, that maybe isn't in that space yet, that is not based upon those material measurements, it's based upon what the potential of our community is and what we can do in those spaces.
I would like to say, I'd like to come back on on what you're saying now. So sorry, Susan, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to follow on from what Niles was saying in terms of sort of spaces that need to be, that the community have created, and just sort of echoing what he says really, and also the importance of children being part of that, because you know a lot of the work that LCAT does is with our children and adolescents, and how important that they are part of creating these spaces, that they are part of, you know, the healing and the recovery, because it's their community. They're going to be here longer than us, you know, and that's been a great value for LCAT and our community centre in particular, that the children have felt great real ownership of that. You know, they talk about the first art therapy room and the first art therapy groups that we ran, and that they created them, that they were their groups, that they made, you know, and they have absolute ownership over, you know, the sink, that they remember the sink being put into the therapy room. They created a homework space, you know, they designed it, they chose the paint colours, you know, and all that stuff for our little kids, for our big kids. You know, it's all part of the growth that we need, you know, to create a space for them.
So do you think, going back to what Nars was saying about planting the seed, how do you think your plant is doing, and do you think it's well planted? Are you feeling good about it?
I think our roots are firmly embedded, you know, and I think, but so every now and then we hit a frost, you know, and it's difficult to keep growing in that straight line and keep flourishing, you know, because it's sometimes there's hard winters and there's hard times, and the plant needs a little bit of extra care and attention, you know, and I think that's one of these times at the moment for us, you know, and we need to survive the frost and take care and cover up that little delicate plant and make sure it keeps growing.
And do you think that, obviously, you know, good things do come out of, you know, from bad events, and you know, do you think obviously Grenfell has changed sort of direction of people, and are very much changed the direction and the way we're going, and making everybody, like, you know, look at themselves and consider what they've been doing and values, and you know, so I think it's you know, Grenfell's obviously had a profound effect, you know, on North Kensington, and you know, can you sort of put that into words a bit, Susan?
I think it has had a profound effect, and I think, you know, I didn't run an organisation before this. I had no intention of running an organisation. I just sort of got on with things, you know, kind of, you know, and we know everybody knew everybody. Our children went to Maxilla Nursery, my son went to Grenfell Nursery. We're deeply connected in this community, all over the place. You know, we were always part of, you know, various fights and various things. But this just, you know, it feels like this brought us closer, but it also really, really highlighted the need for collaborative, collective voices and thinking and shared spaces that we needed. You know, so it has profoundly changed everyone, really. But it's you know, it's, as well as it being a massive struggle and a terribly painful experience, there has also been changes which, you know, that we've made connections and grown closer through these struggles, you know, which is, you know,
would you say that
helpful part, hopefully?
Would you say that one of the profound changes is that people have, you know, it's self-motivated, it's self-created, it's, you know, it's us doing it, you know, and being involved, and very much so, rather than sort of, you know, receiving, it's creating and being part of that, you know, very much.
The community, yeah, absolutely, Jacob. And I think, you know, the community-led, community-created therapy service that serves its people is the same as the kitchen hubs it's the same as the music, you know, the Acklam Village space that people go to for all sorts of kind of, you know, different things. You know, I myself went there several times because I knew I could be listened to there, you know, and that's the sort of, you know, I just knew there were difficult times, and I thought I need to go to the village. That's where that's where I can just go and be listened to and heard. And we know the trusted safe spaces, you know, we've always known them. We've always used them. We know where we know the places that we belong, and they've just been so important, just so important. But yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure there are, for many people, you know, these spaces which people will reference and found to be safe spaces. My personal experience was also, you know, Bay 56 was very significant, and it's astounding, really, that such, you know, a place which was really, it's I don't know if I can find words, but, you know, a bay underneath a, you know, 6-lane motorway, you know, huge concrete structure, that we, you know, nevertheless, that space became, you know, a healing space. It became, you know, a beautiful space, and people brought things there, and there was art, and there was plants, and there was sounds, and there was burning of incense, and, you know, and it was a very, I found very, nevertheless, you know, such a sort of, you know, horrendous structure, that was one of the spaces where I felt, you know, I could heal. And I also noticed that Niles, I think, by opening that space and very much representing the African face of this Miradani, and brought in, you know, a community that have, you know, I felt very much been pushed out, or, you know, was in the cold, and I saw people there that I had not, you know, really connected with or seen for a long time, and I felt that he'd really opened the door to a lot of people that were previously pushed out of that space. Perhaps, Naz, you know, how would you like to respond to that perception or view of things?
I think, you know, that the space is historically has a lot of resonance for the community, from, you know, from going back to the early, you know, like first developments there in that space, you know, the venture playground, Ebony Pan Yard, so many different things that basically are part of the fabric of people's, you know, memories of this area, how they grew up, or what they spent time doing. And, you know, the irony with the village was that it's basically been a case of arrested development and managed decline for decades. Yeah, but because of that, re-entering back into that space, it always takes people back to another time, because they can remember. It's like, it's almost like you're back in the 70s or something when you go in there, because basically, like I say, it's been kept in a state of arrested development. But that also became part of the charm of the village, you know, at the end of the day, is that people, there was something familiar. There was something that people are still connected to in that space, which is their memories, their culture, and
Yes.
all of the things that have happened in that space. So that's also to do with the metaphysics of vibration, you know, in terms of, you know, accumulated vibration. We forget these things, and that's what I mean when I'm saying that, you know, a house is not a home. A house is just a house, right? It's what's in the home. It's what happens in that house. And, you know, this society doesn't really look at those things in that way. It doesn't really look at fourth and fifth dimensional space. It only goes up to 3D if you're lucky. So, you know, those things are not taken into account, that places have resonance and memory and everything for people, that when they come in there, it can trigger in them, it can inspire them, it can make them, you know, take them back to that time. So when things are shut down without taking that into account, there's a lot more that is taken away than just the building has been closed down and then something else in it. It's like what happened with Maxilla Nursery, what happened with the flyover. What was actually shut down, or what was not allowed to thrive, was much bigger than the building itself. Those things are much bigger than the actual space itself, because the space is just a central place for that energy to resonate. And then that energy goes out into the community the same way. You know, that's why we always have written on the village good vibes only from the beginning, so that, like, you know, we know this is our safe place. This is where we come. We bring good vibes here. We don't bring argument and this and that. You know, we have to have a space that we're respectful to each other in. You know, I'm not saying it's always worked at that time, because it was a very challenging time, as we all know. But you have to try and set these principles that, you know, we can engage with each other and communicate with each other, interact with each other in a safe way.
I would say, if you don't mind, I would say that, you know, in such a volatile time and, you know, traumatic time, that, you know, anything really could have happened, and it's underestimated, you know, what these spaces have done, you know, and how they have, you know, been the positive, you know, what they've done for our community, because it's really underestimated. Well, it cannot be underestimated. I'd like to just say to bring in Ilaria, because I know that you're working as a youth in youth work. I'm just prior, you know, in relation to your work locally in the youth clubs, Lancaster and Goulburn, etc. I know, you know, you were very much involved in that. If we think about just prior to Grenfell, if I'm correct in thinking that there was a lot of sort of things weren't really functioning that well in the youth service, and there was a lot of, you know, things weren't going that well. People was losing their jobs, and actually at the time of Grenfell, you know, the Lancaster Youth Club was actually shut. I think, yes, it was shut, because it actually just
like 2
really
days before.
It got used. It was actually just used really as a storage. I think for donations. So very limited use really. But which was, you know, it meant that there wasn't much in that, you know, that sector. There was a bit of a breakdown. And how do you feel about that? Is that right? Is that a correct interpretation? Is that have I got that right?
Yes, Lancaster was shut just like 2 days before Grenfell. 1 day, 2 days. So it was very, very bad timing, because after Grenfell, you could just see those young people. I mean, I saw them in the night of the fire already, you know, just wandering, lost, right? And then this thing continued. You could just see those young people, you know, around in the street, lost. The Grenfell was the youth center. It was like the closer one to the closest to Grenfell compared to Goulburn and you know, Canal Side. The other ones, Epic at the time, Epic had. And yes, and then working with I also did some work with young offenders. I was doing that just once a week, only for like 2 hours once a week. And during the 2 years after Grenfell, I came across, I think it was 5 young people, 5, yeah, that used to go to Lancaster. and they found themselves caught in a crime. And, I ended up working with them. And this makes you think, like, would that have happened if the center, would have been open? Perhaps no. So yes, this was like really, it was like the worst thing, after Grenfell, the fact that there was no place for the young people to hang out, because they had just shut the club the day before or 2 days before.
Wow. And so, I mean, that is, I don't even think I should say unfortunate, because as Niall was saying, these things aren't, the youth club was obviously marked for the it was part of the new development that was happening there, the regeneration. So
Yeah,
that,
I mean,
how do you,
we can talk for half an hour. Yeah.
Yes. So do you think that,
I
mean, if you compare, say, do you think that the space there could have been used in a different way? I mean, following Grenfell, do you think that was a space which was, that really could have been better used, or do you think there was we didn't really have any agency over it, did we? I don't think.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the beginning they did something good. They were collecting donations, but then it should have just been, reopened as a youth club. But it was shut for I think it's been 2.5 years.
It's still shut. It's still
shut. No,
it's
open now.
Is it?
It's open
as
now, but the young, yes, but it's been 3 years, right? So the young people that used to go, they got older. Right. The people they start doing different things, or they go older. So this is too late now. I mean, they need to start again.
I think that's a very important point, is that, when there's a 3-year interruption or there's a 5-year interruption in what's going on, it's very damaging, very, very damaging. There's opportunity costs for, for the people in our community, especially the young people, because there's skills that they're not learning. There's opportunities that's not there. There's been so much stuff closed down over the years that basically you can't really count the cost of that other than by looking what's now going on in our community, and especially for the young people. So, most of that was taken, was just people in the community who cared, who had to take the time to deal with it. Because we got to remember also that the authorities don't have the skills to deal with these things, because they have the wrong perspective of how to deal with it. You can't expect the person, the abuser, to be able to know how to heal the abused. So we know how to heal ourselves. And we did that simply through the mundane things of just being there for each other, listening. A lot of young people used to come to the village and we just sit and talk. I just listen sometimes. The simple things, the mundane things. When we're drumming, people might be amazed by it, but it's the things that are supposed to be mundane in our life that are part of the things that keep us strong, not something out of the ordinary. It's because, these things have been marginalized that they now become, oh, you see this thing and then it's an amazing thing to see. But when I was growing up, these things were around us. That's how I absorbed it. You absorb by being in the environment where these things are happening. So we have to be present in our community, and by default, when we're present and we're sharing our knowledge in the right way, then we're healing each other. We're our own healers in that sense, because we heal while we're being creative, while we're being compassionate, while we're showing empathy, while we're giving a helping hand. We're all healing.
But it's interesting that we talked about the sort of the the kind of the community, the youth centre being closed, and Lancaster Youth, whatever place. I don't ever remember
Club,
it being
yes.
open. I don't really remember it ever being open. But we took matters into our own hands, really, at Henry Dickens, you know, and I guess that's the power of a community that feels enabled, really. And we, rather than waiting for them to give us permission, we just took back the space, really, and we created our own spaces. We created youth clubs, we created children's kids club. You know, the kids needed it, and we opened the doors and let them have it. You know, much like the village, we just were there facilitating, you know, holding a space for them, giving them, you know, what they needed, really, whether it was a cup of tea or, you know, art materials, or space with a therapy person that they didn't know, or space with Anne that they did know. It was, you know, it was all part of it, really. It was all just, you know, but we didn't wait for them to give permission. We just did it, you know. And I guess had we waited, would we still be waiting, really, you know?
Yes. Yes, the community response has been everything.
Yeah, I think these spaces, you know, we can't. They're so important. They're so massive in how they've affected us and in our well-being, and we're very grateful to. I'm very grateful to for the HD opening and in the way it did, and for Bay 56, which for anyone who's watching this that doesn't know is one of the bays under the A40 Westway motorway. Yes, I think we are in, there's, you know, the effect that you have had on people positively has been enormous, and I can just feel like the sense, you know, that we can very much ease, you know, our spirits can drop when we're talking about these things, and we must try and lift ourselves back. I feel, you know, in our attempts to thrive, and it is very much, I think, the community, people doing things, and so I think we've talked quite a lot about the you know, the response to Grenfell, the community, and how important it has been for this change and coming together and people doing things themselves. Now I know Niles is doing has his own way of responding to the lockdown. So the lockdown is another you know, well-being issue that we're having to deal with, the isolation and the lack of interaction and the sort of the freedoms restrictions. And so Niles, would you like to talk about how your response has been with that, and what that has meant to you, and say maybe your community in as Afro-Caribbean man, shall I say, in that Caribbean culture? Yes.
Yeah. I just one thing I wanted to add to that last bit before we go there with that was that,
Sure.
you know, one thing I think that needs to be recognized is that what's happened with these spaces that were self-determined is that because they were self-determined and because they were independent, the community produced itself without going to anyone else. And I think if we look at these situations properly, yeah, these things should be they should be repeated in the spaces the other spaces that's there on the 23 acres now that are available there, because I think you know, through looking at that, you can see what the community is capable of with just access to space. It's not always about money. It's not always about that side of it. It's about what people are already doing in the community that maybe just needs a little more space to thrive. I just wanted to make that point as well. you know, because I know there's a lot of young people in this community who are doing stuff and are ready to go, and I know there's space available. So we have to connect the dots somehow, because if our young people ain't thriving, it doesn't matter what else is going on if they're not thriving, because they're the future.
Yeah.
In terms of the lockdown, I'm not going to get too political with it right now, but what I will say is that we have been faced with a dilemma in terms of my tradition as a drummer. We've gone through many things and many challenges. You know, we've even had to continue doing what we're doing in the face of danger, you know, and risk your life to do that sometimes, you know, so that we could be here today. The ones who came before us did that. And spiritually, we deal with sound, how sound effects matter, which is actually a natural science that operates in the universe. It's not something mystically unaccessible. You can look up science like cymatics, C-Y-M-A-T-I-C-S, and you can see how even in Europe, people have measured how sound effects matter. And they've done experiments and show you how sound can move objects, right? So in terms of healing, we play a very central focus in terms of the drumming that we do and the relationship with our community that is keeping us healthy and is keeping the environment healthy, because it's in tune with the environment. The restrictions set up a situation where no one could gather. And basically, if you're aware of the tradition of 9 nights in African and African Caribbean culture, the 9 night is the night where everyone gathers and the drums play, and we you know, before someone makes their transition, you know, and then also when transitions are happening and births, all of these things are things that we take part in the community. Now, when the lockdown, the initial part came, none of that was allowed to happen at all. And it caused you could feel the disconnect of us not being able to do that. So we had to strategize and work out, how can we keep this energy flowing? Because we can't allow it to not happen. We can't not do anything, because that would, you know, that would not be us honoring those who came before us. So, you know, not totally ignoring the restrictions, but looking at how we can actually work with them and still get things done. We started off with a couple of drummers and started doing what we call drum call for the ancestors, where we get together every Sunday at 9 o'clock in the village, and we pay respects to those who come before us, those loved ones in transition, and those who are yet to come, and invoke good energy for our community. So we started that as something that if we at least do it, or people see that we're doing it, even if it's a couple of us initially, then we can actually build the collective consciousness that we can reach each other and actually be in tune for these things, so that when someone passes, we know there's a point in time every week where we get together as a community and we collectively deal with that issue. So we do it online, but it's not just online. It really was about word of mouth as well, and just telling other people this is what we're doing every Sunday. So if, you know, if you're going through bereavement or whatever, there's something happening in our community that's still related to that 9 night and that transition, that you can actually tune in with, you know, on a spiritual level. 9 o'clock every Sunday, you take that 1 minute to do that. And if you want to tune into the whole drum session, you tune in. But it's more also about spreading the message of us developing our collective consciousness. So we've been doing that now for 47 weeks. So, you know, this week coming, this weekend on Sunday is actually the spring equinox. It'll be our 48th session. And the size differs depending on what the restrictions are, but we keep it going. And you know, people get in contact with me, they tune in. People sometimes find it something that they're able to use to create themselves, just listening to the drums or just relax to it or whatever. It's just a keeping that stream going at a time where we could have not been doing that for a year now. And then what happens? This is what I was talking about before. When you prevent things from happening and they don't happen, you then start to lose the continuity of your culture. And this is what's happened to our community over time in this area, because certain things were cut off. And this is just an extreme example of it. So, you know, we are keeping that going no matter what happens. We will keep doing it because, you know, the question became to be or not to be. To be or not to be, that's the question right now. Do we cease to exist? I think we have to be informed, think with our own minds, and still do what we need to do for our community, because there's things that we use that keep us healthy that the system don't use or will never use. And we have to use those things. A bit like I was saying to you before about how, you know, the system doesn't use the same tools. So they can't heal us because they don't have the tools to do it. Only we have the tools to do it. And we're using them.
I think there's a very powerful words, and I think the resonance, you know, in a lot of you know, cultural practices, and I think, you know, keeping your culture alive, you know, just by the, you know, the simple thing of, you know, playing drums, you know, might seem, you know, the simple activity, but how if, you know, the drum, the significance of the drum, you know, to say the African people, African diaspora, you know, you can really see the playing of the drum, and that just to stop, you know, would mean, you know, like you say, to be or not to be is quite a big thing that maybe we don't appreciate. So would this be a good time to play your you have a presentation, an edited video? Normally we have been having an artist come and give something to the event, but today we have we wanted to give an idea of the ancestral drumming, bring that into this event. Obviously bringing say 7-8 djembe drummers, you know, onto a live stream would have its technical probably incapabilities. So we have recorded something. Niles has recorded and edited something for us. Is that right, Niles?
No, what I've done is I've drawn on some stuff that's already happened before last summer. An interview that I did for Grenfell United, and also a filming of a whole session that happened from Got Kush did. And I've just kind of compacted that so that people can get an idea of what actually happens, because it would be impossible for us to convey in this medium. And I thought it was important that people got a proper idea of what it actually is.
Lovely,
so
thank you.
That's why the video is there, really, so you can get the proper context and maybe get a feel of what actually happens, and just get a little experience of what we actually do.
Well, one of the effects of the current situation, yeah, is that it disconnects us, right? So therefore, we have to find creative and innovative ways that come from the roots of our culture to reconnect. One of them is this, that every Sunday, we've been spreading by word of mouth and telling people 9 o'clock on Sunday evenings, take a minute to remember the ancestors. And also take a minute to remember those who've passed that we haven't been able to gather collectively for. Because if we gather our consciousnesses together, yeah, right, which is what used to happen before the technology, before the telephone, before the internet, right? We used to have those numbers. When we had to dial phone like this, everything was stored in our heads, right? So what we're saying is let's develop that form of telepathy, that, you know, let's grow spiritually, but to the rooted point of where we used to be able to communicate without phones, without social media. Back to the 9 o'clock, the Sunday session, the drums, we call it drum call for the ancestors. We call the ancestors 3 things. 1, we call the ancestors, remember those who came before us, whose shoulders we stand on. Yeah. 2, we remember those that have recently passed and making their transition, so that we collectively in our consciousness come together to acknowledge that. Yeah, because we can't do it in the physical. And 3rd, we meditate on the positive things that we collectively need to bring into being for our community, and that the truth about what's going on in the world around us be revealed to everybody, so we can move forward in truth, rights, and justice and peace. we've got to be the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, and we've got to shine that light bright. Yeah, and we're going to have to be creative and innovative, and we're going to have to take risks. No one's got justice or sought freedom or liberation without having to take risks. You know, and the world that we're living in now, right now, yeah, as we're speaking, yeah, we all have a responsibility for the generations that's coming after to stand up, stand in our power and talk the truth about what's going on, work with our communities. Because if we don't, we'll be explaining a very sad story to them about how we just did what we were told to do. You know, and there's times in history you can look back to where that was people's excuse when they had to explain why they didn't do something about the madness that was going on around them, right? So that's all our responsibilities to deal with now. We have to get that message out.
I think I was just saying before that the mood or the energy had felt quite low and a bit sad, quite sad and down because we've been talking about quite serious things, and I think you just demonstrated how the community can lift ourselves back up, and I think lift our spirits back up. So that was just a very good demonstration. I feel much better after watching that. That was amazing. Thank you. What do you think, Susan?
Yeah, I think there's something sort of visceral about the drumming that really gets in, really gets into your body, and that's, I think we just love it, really. And I was just thinking, as I was sat here, like, I just really miss it. I really miss people. I miss being around people. It's just been so difficult, I can't wait to be back in amongst people.
Yes, I think, I think it's very brave and determined. That wasn't any ordinary Sunday we're talking about. This is during lockdown, and a serious decision has been made. How do you feel? How did that make you feel, Ilaria, watching that?
Well, one of the effects of the current situation.
Have we got Ilaria? Ilaria, are you there? Not quite. Ilaria? Ah. So I will
just
continue
wanted-
conversation. Yes, Susan, please
I
do.
just-
Yes.
Yeah, I just sorry. I just wanted to sort of say about the kind of decision to kind of, collect and come together during the pandemic. And I guess, LCAT, particularly our therapy services, we took the decision this lockdown, and since June really, that we needed to come back to face work with children, that we couldn't deliver a therapy service to kids on a Zoom screen, and behind masks and things. And that was a huge ask of our therapists. It was a huge, piece of work to think about that. And I think we had to do it in terms of, thinking about the well-being of the community, but also the well-being of the schools and the children, and knowing that, the teachers and the teaching assistants were in, and actually the cleaners were in, and we should be there too. And just how important that connection back to the sort of work, and being in with another in a room, really.
Yes, understandable. Very difficult decisions to make, but I think you are, in the right place to make them. So I've got some feedback coming, which is a bit odd, but do we have Ilaria now?
Yes, I think you can hear me now. Yeah.
Oh, great. So yes, we can. So I asked. Yes, so I asked you, Ilaria. We're talking about how the mood, how did that drumming, how did that video affect you, and what's your response to watching that?
I'm thinking about this thing of the vibration, the vibe. Also, we talked about before, and how important it is, the music, the drums. Talking about things like this, we organize sometimes with the Pavilion Hive. We organize, I can't hear very well, we organize a gong bath.
Mm-hmm.
You know what a gong bath is? Basically, it's
us.
like 3 big gongs, and the gong master just plays them while people just they just lie down and they listen to the gong, and it's amazing. It's really, really healing. And yeah, we thought about that, to introduce that to the Grenfell community, because the teacher is my very first yoga teacher. He's a very nice person. And yeah, and the drums, the gong, those sounds, the om in yoga, they're like ancestral sounds, aren't they? It's like they speak, they everyone feels them the same way. There's no, I don't like this sound, I don't like that sound. Everyone loves them. They're just amazing. The vibration they generate can be felt from everyone, I think. So to be honest, I was hanging in the washing, if I need to be completely honest, because I was, but I could hear the sound, and it was just fantastic, just to hear it.
Yeah. So
yeah, could I just add as well that
yes, sure.
Yeah, could I just add something? There's also, it's not pre-planned. We never know what's going to happen. We don't have a set list. It's just pre-expression. It's like art in that way, that you have a blank canvas and you just come to it with a clean heart and a good intention. And it's always a beautiful experience. It's as healing for us as it is for anybody who who receives that vibration, you know. So, and everyone who's involved with it is doing it because it's our responsibility to do it. We've had no funding or anything. We haven't applied or nothing to do what we're doing. We're just doing it because that's what we have to do. That's our culture, and everyone who's contributing to do it is doing it on that basis because they themselves feel that the continuity of our culture is that important, that we must do it.
It's amazing. This brings me back to just a personal thing. You know, I had my best friend I moved to London with 22 years ago. Her name was Sabina. And she died, unfortunately, in 2012. And for the last 2 years of her life, she was blind. And instead of, you know, like crying on herself, she was a very, very, very strong person. She started to study drums and, you know, doing shows. And it was just fantastic, you know, to see someone who couldn't even see getting so happy, just playing and performing and communicating this way, you know, with the drums. Just beautiful.
So again, I think there was one thing that I think Susan talked about, or that I've heard before, that, you know, we are lucky in that not every area has a community. And when we talk about, you know, the spaces we talk about, you know, I remember someone mentioning that they're not familiar with this you know, this narrative, and that you know, I think I hear that quite often, that, you know, oh, we would wish we have some sort of community like that we're trying to save, or that we're trying to cling hold of and value and pass and remind our children and the young people about our community, and you know, and you know, why do we have, you know, such this community and these spaces, and that people have, you know, maybe being, you know, so rebellious and refusing to sort of, you know, let go of spaces and take claim of spaces. You know, why is that? And but definitely it's not you know, it's not commonplace everywhere. And but I think that I would say in human nature that when, you know, you know, the terrible things do happen, that, you know, people you know, things are born out of that, like the phoenix rising, or that, you know, there is a response that will come with that will create, you know. So perhaps it is that this area has, you know, has a history of a difficult history that has produced, you know, these spaces, centers that other areas don't have. You know, maybe some areas are, you know, not much happens there, but there are a lot of things have happened. You know, we have a very you know, what's the word, is we have a long history, but many things happening, lots of events, you know, that are significant in this area, trouble and strife. And I might just point to the library event and ask you, like, how you feel that itself is having on our health and well-being and our thriving, because I've been tuning in, and I feel there's been a real continuity in what people have been talking about, connecting. And we brought in this time in this event, we brought in quite a wider range of artists and people that have been involved. So this is our third event, and the last two were based at the library, and we started building our themes, our spaces, greening our library, etc. And we did, you know, a number of different themes. This one we really reached out, and we had a you know, a broad, I think a wider range of people involved, and there seemed to be a real good connection in what people are saying, and I found them to be very positive, and you know, we're shining lights on some community champions, you know, brilliant people in the community. So how do you feel, you know, our library saved, you know, how can we say that is having an effect on how we're thriving, and what do you see for the future of the library event itself? Should you think that's a good thing to maybe touch upon?
She wants to know if she can bring Tanner here.
Susan, would you like to comment on that?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think I just sort of want to speak a little bit to what you've just said about sort of these spaces and sort of how they've been created. And I think sort of going back to Niall's and what he sort of spoke about the sort of rich history of the area and how we fought to take things back, including the library, but also built things by by ourselves, and that has been sort of somehow internalized into our sort of collective unconscious, really. And that's what enabled LCAP to form, is this idea that we could actually build something, we could actually form a service that was needed for ourselves. And there's something, the mangrove that speaks to this, which is that a community under threat will create the spaces that it needs. And I think we are under threat. We were massively under threat, and we did create what we needed, and we still sort of need it really massively. And I'm thinking the events, that this online space that's been created is sort of, yes, it's been needed, and it's just, sort of coming together and just hearing, because it's felt very isolating, really, kind of just getting on with things and working behind closed doors for over a year, not seeing familiar people, not doing familiar things. And I think this library event tonight, this evening, has just sort of really brought us together in some way, and just reminded us what we're all doing. So and that is a shared goal and a shared way forward, and how much it's kind of we need to keep moving forward and continue with this survival, because we do need to get to the point of thriving.
Yes, can I comment on that? I think, yes, this is it. You said it, Susan. It's like, those spaces are very important. And I think all of us, in different ways, we all like fighting, like we all are fighting the just unscrupulous development of, like just building places without community spaces. We're fighting, like we were talking about the estate now, with all those, Warrington estate, with all those trees being cut, the pubs being shut, all those things, like they happen every day. You get an email, oh, they want to shut this pub. A pub is a community space as well, the youth clubs, all those places. But we are fighting this, where we are. And the library is a symbol of like the fact that really everything is possible, because that was a done deal. It was decided, the library was going to be knocked down, and the youth center Lancaster was going to be shut for good. And then, it didn't happen. And of course, it was because it was in a sad time. So maybe they didn't have the heart to do that. But still, it means that, we can achieve, what a lot. We can achieve a lot if we are together, and if we talk, and if we have those now online, meetings, and we just keep believing.
Yeah. And I sort of think, I think about the sort of therapy spaces that we create, and what Niall's just said as well about the sort of, we arrive in a space, and the drumming sort of takes its course according to who's there and what the content is, and something's created. And I guess, the way that we work, the way that our arts therapists work, is a non-directive form of therapy, and the space is there, and the young people make that their own, and they create what they need to create, whether that's within the therapeutic relationship or in the art making, or both, really. And that the sort of that sort of being led by the individual in therapy, being led by the person, being led by the community is, you know, in essence what's needed, rather than doing two. And I think, you know, we've really moved away from that, and I think that's been the most sort of powerful thing, really. In the sort of, you know, the library was being done to us, and we managed to stop that, really, and that's, you know, amazingly powerful, and a legacy that's something to hold on to for our children, for everybody, really.
Yes.
I think it's important that the stories are told, because it's also about developing resilience, isn't it? Like, in terms of, you know, the drum call is about developing that resilience in people, that they little boost, that it's you know, that week is a bit easier, a bit more energy, a bit more inspiration, or wherever in that situation, you know, through actually just being able to put a positive energy through, you know, in that way there, you know.
Yes, I think there's been a lot of talk about, you know, celebrating our victories, you know, our community victories that have come through a lot of struggle, recent struggle, but then also have been, you know, following on from, you know, years, and this, you know, this area's local history of struggle. So, you know, when we mentioned Warnington College, you know, that's a community victory, the library, and now of course the Westway Trust is a massive achievement, and probably, you know, for communities, you know, around the world, you know, one of very, you know, you know, I was completely an anomaly is the right word, isn't it? I think we were talking about that before, Naz, that you know, we are moving in a different direction from what's been imposed on us, it feels. And so yes, these are brilliant victories, and I think that there are people that, you know, look to these victories as very positive things, and give people inspiration. And I think that it was very nice and positive to see that the Warnington Tree campaign coming out, because they also you know, feel that energy that we are passing on and creating and handing over this energy that we, you know, standing up. And I think that, you know, they're supporting each other, and I think that if the trees if we manage to save some, like the last 7 trees that are there in Warnington, which I know we're hearing that the Catalyst, the developers, do not want to, you know, they don't want to save them, but I think we are in a stronger position. It seems 2 weeks ago they came to chop them down, and I was there in the morning with other community people and other people from the local area, and it was amazing to see that each person, some people in the trees, some people standing in front of the trees, singing, doing, you know, producing the art, you know, within the COVID restrictions as we could, doing our exercise. You know, that this has fed off the victories, you know, and the power, and that yes, we can stand up to these enormous powers that be. And let's hope that we can have a Warnington Tree Festival sometime in the future, because they, you know, one of the things that the developer, the property prices, you know, the thing that pushes up the property prices, partly, you know, that has led to a lot of, you know, this carelessness for our area, has also seen the loss in what, you know, what actually people would like to, why they would like to live here. So let's, you know, so we
Yes,
have we must
yes.
focus on those So we must focus on our victories as well as our healing, part of our healing and surviving. So I've just been told we have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I'm sorry, Ilaria, you're
fast.
coming in there.
I just wanted
Ilaria,
to say, yeah,
yes.
because we didn't talk a lot about this, and it's actually, you know, a very, very central point of everything of health and well-being, you know, the trees and nature. Like today I went for a walk in the park and I came back like, you know, a new person, you know, and the trees are so, so, so important. And yes, for health and well-being. Just a tree can teach you so many things. Just looking at a tree, you know, as an artist, for example, I look at the trees and I see how, you know, nature develops and how your creativity develops. And I'm inspired just by looking at branches of trees, you know, or you can hug a tree, you know, and you feel better because you feel the energy and all the, you know, trees. We need more trees. Don't cut any more trees. This is a very, very important battle right now, you know. And yes, what you're saying, Jacob, is like completely true. You know, like this area is important for those things, for people like us, for people who take part in the community, you know, thinking about, you know, the history as well, Powys Square, the Tabernacle, you know, all those things that we have that, you know. And then, you know, when the rent goes up, you know, people like us, people who are not very rich, sometimes they, you know, they have no choice, especially if they have children, but to leave the area. Sometimes they, you know, they offer a bigger accommodation in Birmingham, or, you know, and all this is like so wrong, you know. And then people who move in, they're just very rich. They're not active in the communities. Their children, they go to private schools. They don't go to youth clubs. They don't, you know, and the area changes. And then the reason why they liked it and they moved in the first place is not, you know, it's not valid anymore. Yeah, it's gone.
Yes, it's a bit of a dilemma there, isn't it? I think because they do appreciate, you know, the vibrant area, the, you know, the colorfulness and all of the, you know, diverse and things that are going on. But, you know, that moving there, pushing the prices up, you know, in a way is part of what, you know, is part of what pushes that out, and where we lose those things.
Yes.
So yeah, focusing on the positive achievements that we've done. I mean, we have such a rich history, and we are, you know, we could name many struggles, and you know, in a way, we're starting again. It feels the Westway Trust is starting from scratch, and we are starting anew. Henry Dickens, LCAT has planted you've planted your seeds. Niles and the Bay 56 is starting something new there that we hope has also the Miradami, you know, has new seeds, and there's a lot of new you know, it's a new start for a lot of people, and I think you know, so we're in a new beginning, really. But we know that this time, at this moment in time, in this area, there is a lot of change happening, and it's very important. Even it's very demanding, but it's very important that we are engaged, because there's lots of changes being put forward, lots of changes being proposed. There's probably could be maybe 30 meetings a week, important meetings a week. I don't know. I know all of our councillors have been non-stop at meetings. All, you know, all of the community groups in the area, you know, it's a very busy time, important time for this community, where if you're not involved and you're not actually having a real say, then the decisions that get made now, you know, they're going to affect us for a long time to come. And so it's a lot of demands on us, a lot of demands. And so we keep going. We keep going. And
We need to keep
we
it
play
up.
our drums. We play our drums. We do our yoga. We'll go and visit the LCAT, and we'll feed off. We'll feed off the good things that people are doing in the area, and we'll thrive and survive. Do you want to
Yeah.
say some last? Would you like to say some last words on what thriving and surviving means, and what that could be? All the panelists.
I would say that, we've survived the onslaught at the moment of the regeneration program that was originally planned for the area. We've survived it, but we haven't overcome it yet. And it's good that we take time to recognize these things and celebrate what has been done, because you have to remember 5 years ago, people didn't even think these things were possible. Yeah, so now they are possible. There's examples that people can look at and say, but we have to tell a story. They say, till the lion tell its tale, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So it's important that we tell these stories and what's happened, because people need to know the dynamics of what's going on, because we're still on a big learning curve in terms of, the psychology of those who oppress us. And we have to really get to grips with that in order to thrive. Because as we know, the powers that were will talk all the right words, They talk all the right words, but they don't have the intention. So we know that the struggle continues. And that's why it's difficult for us for sometimes to kind of just celebrate something or say, because we know, all right, when's the next battle coming? We know there's something else coming around the corner, but we have to take the time out to acknowledge when something good happens. We have to acknowledge it. We have to learn to do that as well, and embrace those things as well,
Okay, I think we're all agreed there. Susan, would you like to say
thank you. Yeah, absolutely, Niles. And I also just kind of want to sort of go back to the sort of legacy idea, and actually what we're saying to the children here in terms of thriving is that change is possible, that we can talk up to power, we can make things change, we can enforce change, we can enable change, and that in itself is just an enormously powerful legacy, which is something the library has really shown us all, but so many things, like you say. And also, the sort of this particular evening and coming together in a space that's truly led by the community, where someone from the community is asking questions and people in the community are inputting into that, and it's not led by someone else, statutory powers or whoever. It's actually our space that we've created for ourselves, where we can speak. It feels, that in itself feels this evening like really important.
Yes, Ilaria. Surviving but thriving. What does that mean?
Surviving but thriving. So everything that Susan and I said, just putting it together, like, okay, of course, do yoga every day, make art, play music, and talk to each other. It's very, very important. We talk to people, say good morning, good evening, what's going on here, what's going on there, and, and then take it from there.
Well, I think there's some very, we'll have to, there's some very, very deep conversations and meaningful for this community. And I hope that if you've been watching, or if you tune in at any time in the future, because all of this will be archived, we hope that you enjoy what's been said and learn a bit from the different panelists we've had here today. So tomorrow, this is the 6th day of our event. Tomorrow we have learning our young people, the future of our young people. That's free till 5 tomorrow, Saturday, the 20th, 3 to 5 p.m. And I'm sure that will be the young people doing their thing. It will be some presentations and a young people's forum, and so we'll hand it over to the young people to see what they have to say tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you to our guests, Niles. Thank you to our guests, Ilaria, Susan Roderick, and also to Nick in the background. Great job.
Thank you everyone.
Thank
Yes,
you.
guidance, voila.